Hello everyone, and as you guys probably know, 2019 is a crazy year for Star Wars. We have Galaxy's Edge opening up. We have Star Wars Celebration coming up in 60 days from the day that I'm recording this. We've got Episode 9 in December. We've got the rest of Season 1 of Resistance, the beginning of Season 2 of Resistance, The Mandalorian premiering, the Clone Wars Season 7 premiering, untold numbers of comics, and Star Wars Jedi Knight Fallen Order. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy freaking year. And I thought that I'd just do a quick recap of all of the books that are coming out, all the publishing news, basically, all the publishing announcements that have been announced for books this year. I'm talking about just books, not comics. The comics are the one part of Star Wars that I'm not like super hardcore on getting through. I'm just kind of slowly every once in a while picking up an issue here, picking up a trade paperback there, stuff like that. And so I'm not going to be covering the comics stuff in this video. I just want to talk about the novels and middle grade reader books and stuff like that we know are coming so far. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot more announced at Celebration because we had The Road to the Force Awakens and then The Road to the Last Jedi, or Journey to the Force Awakens, Journey to the Last Jedi. We still haven't gotten anything with that pre-suffix, whatever you want to call it, so far this year, and they're going to have to do one for Episode 9. They're going to have a slate of books ready to go for Episode 9. So, we're going to go in chronological order so far right now. March 5th, we are getting Queen's Shadow. This was announced back at New York City Comic Con, I think. Last year, calendar year, 2018. Let's see here. It is written by E.K. Johnston, writer, or author, I should say, of Ahsoka. And that was a fantastic book. We're getting, let's see here, the publisher summary is written by the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Ahsoka, when Padmé Naberi, very important, getting Padmé's not queen name, because keep in mind Amidala isn't Padmé's actual legal name, quote unquote, whatever, steps down from her position. She is asked by the newly elected queen to become Naboo's representative in the Galactic Senate. Padmé is unsure about taking on the new role, but cannot turn down the request to serve her people. Together with her most loyal handmaidens, Padmé must figure out how to navigate the treacherous waters of politics and forge a new identity beyond the Queen's shadow. This book in particular, I'm crazy hyped for. I'm a massive fan of Padmé. I love Padmé as a character. I mean, don't get me wrong, Leia taught 4-year-old me that women can kick butt too. I think that I just didn't quite catch on that Leia was a leader on top of a warrior when I was a kid watching the OT. However, when I was 8 and I went to go see The Phantom Menace, and I saw a 14-year-old Padmé saying, yeah, that's nice. You do your politics stuff, Palpy. I'm going to go and basically form a quick little rebellion and take back my planet and save my people. So, in addition to being a warrior, Padmé kind of taught 8-year-old me that women could also be immensely charismatic leaders, and they can be incredibly ambitious, and that they deserve praise, and that they, keep in mind that, ignoring any social commentary or anything like that, it's important for both genders and both sexes to learn that everyone's equal in political and professional roles. So Uh, Padme helped to teach me that, and I have always appreciated Padme as a character, and getting to see her without Anakin involved, because let's face it, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, primarily from my understanding due to behind the scenes reasoning, Padme was used as a crutch. And I mean, that is okay because episode 1 was more of a setup to the world. Then episodes 2 and 3 are really Anakin's story. So of course everybody is there to serve Anakin as a character. Obi-Wan is there to serve as serve a function in Anakin's canonical storyline. Padme's there to do the same thing. Yoda's there to do the same thing. Anakin is our main character. But I've been waiting since I was 8 to get a dedicated story about Padme, and this gets me really excited. Next up, on April 16th, just after Star Wars Celebration Chicago ends, we are getting Master and Apprentice by probably the most celebrated of the new canon authors, ever since the Disney buyout and the reboot of the canon and all that kind of stuff. Claudia Gray. And Master and Apprentice, publisher summary, wow, that's a really long summary. Let's just... An unexpected offer threatens the bond between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi as the two Jedi navigate a dangerous new planet and an uncertain future. I think that pretty much works out. There's another 3 paragraphs, fairly long paragraphs, kind of going through a little bit more of the story. But either way, I'm really excited about this because Qui-Gon in particular as a character, I mentioned it in my Ahsoka video that I recorded a little bit earlier, where some of my thoughts on Qui-Gon right now. And for whatever reason, Qui-Gon's just been kind of stuck in my head for the past, 2 or 3 weeks now. And getting to get more information about Qui-Gon, possibly more about his involvement with Dooku and his relationship with Dooku, because Dooku was his master. And also, while I don't remember anything from the stories, I do remember reading the Young Jedi Academy something. It's not Young Jedi Academy. They're like young reader books, I think. They're like shorter novellas basically. And there's I know there's one where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan leaves the Jedi Order and then he doesn't, and then he while he's under Qui-Gon's tutelage, and it was a fantastic. I remember enjoying the stories, even though that I don't remember anything about them necessarily, or even what the names were. I just remember Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on a neat, because I was 8 or 9. What do you want from me? But just getting more explanation on Qui-Gon as a character, getting more explanation on Obi-Wan as a character, getting pre-Phantom Menace content from an author that I really enjoy and that for the most part is universally liked. For the most part, and universally doesn't quite work. You get my meaning though, is a very popular author in the new canon, in Claudia Gray. Yes, please. Now this is one that I think it's probably equal to Queen's Shadow and Master and Apprentice. Those are kind of the top 3 for me. Even maybe this one might even beat those 2 out a little bit, even though that those 2 are running on nostalgia, on my episode 1 nostalgia. But we are getting on June 11th, Alphabet Squadron. At least the first book in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, which we now know is a thing. It's written by Alexander Freed, who is the writer of the Rogue One novelization and Battlefront Twilight Company. Battlefront Twilight Company, at least to me, is kind of a sleeper. Not many people really read it, or they didn't bother with it because there was no storyline to the original Battlefront, or rather Battlefront 2015, in which Battlefront Twilight Company was supposed to be a tie-in. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't think we talk enough about Battlefront Twilight Company, in my opinion. I definitely prefer the novelization of Rogue One to the movie Rogue One, for the most part. And it just, I love Alexander Freed's writing. He writes military stuff really, really well. As a huge fan of the X-Wing series growing up, the X-Wing series is what got me into like the Star Wars super fandom. You know, I don't use the term, you know, fan and then casual fan. I use terms like involved, very involved, and less involved. So less involved watches the movies and maybe watches the TV shows every once in a while. Involved watches maybe the TV shows and reads the books and the movies, but doesn't look at the comics. And then very involved are crazy people like me who pretty much consume almost everything or everything it is, or everything that there is. But anyways, the X-Wing books got me into the heavily involved tier as a Star Wars fan. I read the first book when I was 14 maybe. I think it was just before Revenge of the Sith came out. And, oops, I just hit the mic. Sorry, I'm getting used to having a lav mic. There we go. And I've always had a thing for starfighter pilots. If I got to live in the Star Wars universe for a day, I would waste it for most people. To most people, I would waste it because the first thing I'd do is I'd find the fastest speeder I possibly can and drive it like a madman or fly it like a madman to the nearest hangar that has any type of starfighter and then literally just joyride in a starfighter all day. That's what I would do. Being able to fly a starfighter is like, would be a dream come true for me. And getting to see stories about post Return of the Jedi fighter pilots, that's exactly what the X-Wing series was. And I'm not expecting a carbon copy of the X-Wing series. It even looks like some of these characters are, pulled from defectors or pulled from POW camps even, cobbled together from an eccentric assortment of pilots and starfighters. The 5 members of Alphabet Squadron are tasked by the New Republic General Hera Syndulla herself. Yes, rebels! God, Hera, be still my heart. And each one of them flies their own thing. Each one of them flies their own type of starfighter. You got a Y-Wing and an A-Wing and a B-Wing and a X-Wing and a A-Wing, U-Wing. I said one of those previously, but whatever. You know what I'm getting at. And yes, it doesn't make any sense tactically in a turning dogfight for there to be multiple different types of craft, but whatever. It is what it is. It's got that kind of anime-ish feel to it, and I am crazy hyped to listen to, most likely, the first in this series. Next up, we've got Thrawn Treason. Thrawn Treason comes out July 23rd, and written by Timothy Zahn. It is the third in the new, totally not a Thrawn trilogy, sequel to Alliances and Thrawn before it, or rather Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances. Now we're getting Thrawn Treason, in which, let's see here, let's get to our publisher summary. If I were to serve the Empire, you would command my allegiance. Such was the promise the Grand Admiral Thrawn made to Emperor Palpatine at their first meeting. Since then, Thrawn has been one of the Empire's most effective instruments, pursuing its enemies to the very edge of the known galaxy, but as keen a weapon as Thrawn has become, the Emperor dreams of something far more destructive. Basically taking place during Season 4 of Rebels. We get to see Thrawn work to secure his place in the Imperial hierarchy. His former protege, Eli Vanto, from the first Thrawn book. By the way, Eli was such a good character, and I'm so hyped to get him back. Returns with a dire warning about Thrawn's homeworld. Keep in mind, in the first Thrawn novel, Eli kind of went on like an exchange student program to the Chiss Ascendancy. Out in the unknown regions where the First Order came from, where Snoke is probably chilling out at that point in time. Thrawn's master of strategy must guide him through an impossible choice: duty to the Chiss Ascendancy or fealty to the Empire he is sworn to serve, even if the right choices mean committing treason. That sounds interesting. The only thing, and I know that this is stupid, and I don't think that they're going to let this happen. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past Zahn. Don't get me wrong. I respect the man. I respect him as an author. He's definitely written far more books than I ever have. But Zahn, much like Dave Filoni, who I like Dave Filoni's work personally a lot more than I like Zahn's work usually. Zahn really likes his characters, and he's very protective of them. And in a pre-story group era, I could conceive. I shouldn't say I could easily see. And I don't think that it'd be that easy for him, but I feel like there's a possibility in a pre-story group world that Timothy Zahn could maybe try and spin it so that then like, oh, well, Thrawn knew that Ezra was gonna like Thrawn through the fight on Lothal in order to get back to the unknown regions. Maybe he didn't know about the Purkles or anything, but maybe he kind of threw the fight, or he was already planning to lose the fight anyways. And to me that would really undercut Ezra's victory at the end of Rebels, at the series finale of Rebels. I will be very grumpy if that happens, but I don't think it's going to happen. Think of it kind of like back in Legends when IG-88B or whatever it was going, like he was like 10 seconds away from taking over the second Death Star and just starting to blow up every single planet with organics on it to ensure a droid takeover of the galaxy or whatever, right? That kind of undercuts the Rebellion's victory in Return of the Jedi. It'd be the same thing. But with that being said, I don't think that's going to happen, and I'm very excited to read this, if only for Eli Vanto as a character. Next up, on August 6th, we're getting A Crash of Fate, as well as another book, which we'll get to in a second. Crash of Fate, in this young adult novel, Izzy and Jules are best friends until Izzy's family abruptly left Batuu. That is the planet where Galaxy's Edge is located, or is set on. It's located in Anaheim and Orlando. When she was 6, now she's back, and Jules, the boy who never left, is unsure what to make of her. While on the run from vengeful smugglers and an angry pirate, the two friends will come to terms with who they are and what they mean to each other. It is, I believe, designated as a young adult novel. Keep in mind, YA, I think YA is used as people use it to dismiss work, but remember, Ahsoka was a YA novel. Rebel Rising was technically considered a YA novel. People like to think of YA as Twilight, right? And this certainly sounds like it's going to be a young love story, kind of like Lost Stars was. Lost Stars is a lot of people's favorite book in the new canon. Rebel Rising is, in my opinion, one of the best books in the canon. Ahsoka was a very good book in the canon. I believe it's Claudia Gray said in an interview with Alex over at Star Wars Explained that young adult doesn't mean that that's the target audience. That is that's what the characters are about. The characters are young adults. It is for all ages. That's all. It doesn't mean that it's supposed to be only written or only read by young adults. It's just a story written about young adults. That's what that YA tag means. And hey, I'm excited for it. I really, I'm not a big romance fan. I'm really not a big romance fan, just in general. Romance for me, it's such a personal experience to me. The way I experience romance with my partner is completely different than how somebody else might experience romance with their partner. For me and my wife, romance isn't necessarily going out to a candlelit dinner and having lobster or whatever. For the most part, our romance is laying on the couch on a Tuesday. Everybody's got their own sense of how romance works. For example, a friend of mine, Katie Horn, she loves some romances in Star Wars that I just don't get. And then you've got, I personally love the kind of romantic-y subplot, the like awkwardness and weirdness of Rose and Finn in The Last Jedi. I feel like that's a perfect representation of early romance between two adults, especially two, one less developed adult and one less confident adult. Two very flawed human beings. And I personally love that. My point is that romance for me is kind of, either way, I'm more than happy to shell out the $10, $15, $20 that the audiobook is going to cost me. I might even pick up a printed copy. Now that I'm on first shift, I can actually read printed books every once in a while. To be perfectly honest, I'm much more excited about the next book, the other book that comes out on August 6th. This is only a middle grade novel, but you get to hear the thrilling space tales, fables, and myths that are told in a galaxy far, far away. The book features 2 stories that take place on the remote Outer Rim world of Batuu, plus many other untold tales from the edge of the galaxy, lushly illustrated in a style that pays homage to real-world children's classics. And it's got a frickin' Jedi and a frickin' dragon on the cover in like super awesome, like Dune-esque, like that, like Dune cover image look, like that classic fantasy matte feel. I don't know art at all. It looks cool and it's awesome. And now, while I'm a little bit disappointed, it says that there's only 2 stories. I would rather it be a bigger like anthology. I'd rather it have been like, I don't want like 2 100-page stories. I would rather have like 10 20-page stories personally, because I am a massive fan of the unreliable narrator type stuff in Star Wars. It's just it's kind of the best and easiest way for me immerse myself in the galaxy far, far away, because I can sit there and read this book or listen to this audiobook and pretend that I am sitting at a campfire on Jakku, on Tatooine, somewhere around Theed even. Imagine Theed during, I can imagine that I'm in one of those POW camps or whatever that they called them, the internment camps in episode 1 on Theed. And like, there's just this wizened old storyteller just telling you stories. And I love that feeling. I get that for some people, it's just not their cup of tea. They just want to know what actually happened, as opposed to like, well, maybe Luke Skywalker learned how to do the stabby fish thing with the Force on some weird planet where they call the Force the Tide and all that kind of stuff. Maybe Luke got a little bit of help from an intelligent sentient flea during the Battle of Carkoon in Return of the Jedi. For some people that's just not their thing. For me, I love unreliable narrator stuff in anything, really, anything. And despite the fact that it's only 2 short stories, I'm still going to be buying it, and I'm still hoping I enjoy it. Hey, and our last 2 are both a double release as well, both coming out on September 3rd. The first of which is Black Spire, written by Delilah S. Dawson, writer of The Perfect Weapon and the Gurindon short story in From a Certain Point of View, the book that they released for the 40th anniversary of A New Hope, as well as the Phasma novel that came out back in It was 2018. Yeah, it came out it was part of the Journey to the Last Jedi, the Phasma novel, which was a weird, crazy mashup of Mad Max and Star Wars in probably one of the coolest ways ever. So, awesome author reputation. In this novel, a prequel to the Disney Parks experience, General Leia Organa dispatches her top spy to Batuu in a desperate search for Resistance allies. So, sequel trilogy stuff. And it's going to tie into the parks, which is also cool because you can have the cynical view of, oh, they're just doing all this Batuu stuff because then they're going to get people to go to the parks. Yeah, the capitalist corporation is trying to make money. How strange. Just a realism in the socioeconomic position that Western culture's in right now, but whatever. Anyways, yeah, they are doing it to make money, but also they're providing a window for us to be able to experience, when I say us, I mean like Wisconsinites or Midwesterners in general who, can't afford to go to Disney World and don't want to go to Disney World or Disneyland the year that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opens because, well, we'll be able to enjoy 4 hours out of a 3-week trip, because it'll be so freaking packed. So we can kind of get a little bit of that experience until 2022, 2024, when we actually do get to go and see it. And we also know that the spy mentioned in Black Spire, in the publisher summary for Black Spire, is going to be, it's all but confirmed that it's V, who was a character in the Phasma novel, who was actually technically also an unreliable narrator from, so V was telling a story that she heard. V was telling a story to somebody about Phasma's origins, and she heard that story from somebody else who had firsthand experience with Phasma's origins. Also, unreliable narrator stuff, which I love. And V was a fantastic character. She spent the entire book basically trying to convince this other character, Cardinal, to free himself from the chains of the First Order, and he kept coming up with actually kind of good arguments for the First Order in general. And at the end of the day, she didn't even win the arguments. He eventually just gave up and just left the First Order. He never joined the Resistance. Even though that's kind of what she was pushing him towards. He just ended up leaving in general. And it just, the fact that Delilah Dawson didn't pull that trope out of, oh, okay, so the character shows up, the Rebel Resistance character shows up, and then now we're off to go do, now you go make the bad guy good. All right, good. Now you guys can go on to the next book. It's not like that at all. So I doubt that we're going to get Cardinal in this, if I'm being honest, but getting to see V will be very, very, very exciting. Next up, and this is the one that I'm most confused and mildly annoyed at, it is also written by Delilah S. Dawson, also coming out on September 3rd, and it's Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Sounds fantastic. Is an upcoming canon book written by Delilah S. Dawson. The story will look at the Skywalker saga through the eyes of the Skywalker family. It's Delilah S. Dawson on Twitter called it a storybook, so it's going to be much more young readery stuff. But why would you? I want this book. I really want this book. Next May. Not next May, I mean when I say next May, I mean May 2020. Because the Skywalker saga is not over yet. The Skywalker saga ends with episode 9. That's what all the marketing has been saying for forever. This is the one little ranty bit that I'm going to go on. It just doesn't make sense. If you're going to put together this beautiful storybook with like awesome artwork, and it's going to be even aimed at like something that like younger parents who me and my wife plan on having kids very soon. Like I want to have this beautiful book in order to sit my, in 4 or 5 or 6 years, I can sit my 3-year-old kid on my lap and read this book to them without having to say at the end of it, oh, they stopped at episode 8 because episode 9 didn't come out yet. Well, here's my adaptation. Here's my off the cuff ad web adaptation, because I now know episode 9 because they didn't bother to wait 6 months for episode 9 to come out, so that then Delilah could then include episode 9 in the definitive Skywalker Saga storybook. I don't know. Like, I'm just grumpy about it. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's the one negative thing I have to say. I want this book. I just don't get why we're gonna get it. Doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, those are all the Star Wars books that are coming out in 2019 so far. Like I said, we still have not gotten anything with the suffix or prefix, not suffix, prefix, of Journey to Star Wars episode bleh. I don't think that we're going to get any announcements on that until episode 9 trailer, or episode 9 title at least, and or Star Wars Celebration, whichever one comes first. Well, we're not going to know the title of episode 9 by Celebration. They have to release it sometime between now and Celebration because reasons that we won't get into right now, because I'm rambling on through the closing bit of this video that's already probably taken way too long. So thank you guys as always for watching. And as always, may the Force be with you. Take care.